give them homework? Why have tuitions? Why can't you just teach during class hours so that the students don't need to go back home again? That also is in a sense a human rights violation, isn't it? To make children go back and do homework which invariably the parents end up doing rather than the children.
Again, all these things we'll have to measure, and we'll have to see how much and how much is good and how much is not. But homework, I think, is necessary for the child to practice whatever was taught at school, and also to, you know, at least a few hours to spend the time, you know, maybe away from other distractions, which are many nowadays.
All right, few more hours. That's a
Sanjay?
I think that's a strict principle they're talking. Mr. Henry Trephaine, again, what do you believe are some of the deterrents that we can actually put into practice to prevent the recurrence of such incidents of corporal punishment? What are the deterrent measures?
Well, the RT applies to all recognized schools, and therefore I do not want to make this distinction between private and public schools. However, I think it is important to emphasize that a case of violence against a child in the classroom is a custodial violence, because this has happened in the custody of the school after the parent has handed over that custody to the head of the institution and the head of the institution to the class teacher. And therefore this is custodial violence and a custodial torture taking place within a school building. And as long as it is a custodial torture, I think teachers will have to be proceeded using the provisions of the Indian Penal Code. And I think it is more and more cases that are going to be registered that are going to teach private school teachers in large, and I want to be very categorical when I say matriculation school teachers by and large, who think that bringing discipline, or minority schools who think that bringing discipline is their value. It cannot be brought through violence against children.
All right, strong words there from Henry. I'm sure there's another side of the coin also, but thank you very much, Henry, for joining us. Anu, important point raised there by Henry Trephaine. He talks about disciplinary action taken against teachers who are found guilty of inflicting corporal punishment. But many say that that is the problem. It's the moment you only take disciplinary action and you don't take penal action, the moment you don't let the criminal law operate. There are so many laws, apart from what you had mentioned earlier, the Right to Education Act, you've got the Juvenile Justice Act, you've got several other laws which, in fact, even the Ministry of Women and Child Development had recommended, you know, first ban on, you know, the violation of the first ban, a fine of 50,000 rupees for subsequent violations, imprisonment after 3 years. All these are there only on paper. Every time you see a victim's picture like that, a heart goes out to the family and to the school and to the classmates of those children who fall prey. You had even in Kolkata that child who committed suicide.
In fact, I don't believe that as far as this case is concerned, it would amount to corporal punishment, because it would extend from...
It's a clear-cut case of murder.
No, assault, with no intention to murder. But this is...
But if you knew that normally if you're
prevalent only from the age of 6 to 14.
No, but in this case,
yes,
you knew that the boy had a history of epilepsy. You knew that something like that could cause something that is inherently dangerous. Then that's not a, you know, I'm being a lawyer here.
I would leave it for the experts to discuss.
For the courts to judge. All right, let's go back to Mrs. Annie Mohan. Ma'am, you're the expert here in the studio, here in the Hindu studio, in fact, joining us. Yes. Again, no one really talks about it's good. It's on the one hand, yes, teachers, there's a lot of teacher bashing that goes on. But on the other hand, no one really spares a thought for teachers. Because teachers sometimes have to handle classes of 50 or 60 students. No one really focuses on class management. And that perhaps at one level is the root of the problem.
That's exactly where I'm saying, Sanjay, the teachers need to be trained, and it's not a question of, you know, there are just about 20 or 25 kids in a class. It's always a class of 35, 40 and even much more. So the teacher has to have a lot of training and counseling, and she should be made aware of the type of problems she would come across in a classroom.
All schools have counselors, ma'am, on campus, counseling for the teachers and for the, not just for the students, yes, but also for the teachers.
We have sessions for teachers where we talk to them not just about mastering their subjects or teaching techniques to teach or deliver the, you know, what they have to teach, but also in dealing with problems. We also have weekly meetings among the you know, different grades of teachers who share their problems and who, share how they dealt with problems. So awareness, teacher training, and also motivating teachers with, maybe better salaries, and because nowadays nobody comes in for teaching.
Most definitely, I think
if no other job
yes.
is available,
I think teachers
Yeah.
should be. I think teaching should be the highest paid profession in the
available,
country.
then-
I'm all for that, and I'm with you on that, ma'am. But I also want to tell you, give you a sample of a survey done in Chennai, in schools in Chennai, in 2006 on corporal punishment. It said that one of the findings was students who are not bright are made bright through terror tactics. That's a time-tested method. The moment you instill fear, the guiding principle in our education system is instill fear. Instill fear in the students so that they will perform.
Sanjay, I had a school which stood first in the state, a child scoring 190 over 1,200. So I don't think we instilled any fear in children, because we can win them over with other methods. Like today, I had a few cases where I never used any sort of even verbal punishments to the children. Even though what they did was quite serious, and I had called the parents and I had an open talk with them so that together we could help those children who needed help. So there is a root cause for every child when she behaves in an offensive way.
All right.
So I think
Anu George, I think you're also from Kerala, right? No, but do you think Annie Mohan is a model teacher and perhaps a minority? Because some of the things that she says seem the ideal situation, but is that a disconnect between what she is saying and the ground reality?
See, anger, fear, and all of this definitely is instilled in a child while they go through the education process, and that definitely is not the way, at least as far as I can see and understand. But what I hear from her sounds like a very ideal situation. It would be amazing if every school looked at her as a model and instilled that sort of respect and dignity that a child deserves while studying. And it would be definitely an ideal situation.
So is she speaking the truth or not?
Why do you always have to put me in a fix, Sanjay? I mean, I don't think I have any comments to say as far as that goes. I wish I studied in a class, that's all I can say.
All right, Mrs. Annie Mohan, Anu George says she wishes she studied in your class. I'm sure a lot of students watching this show on NDTV Hindu Tonight would also wish that they study in your class, perhaps in your school.
Thank you, Sanjay. That's too big a compliment for me. But we are trying our level best to win over our children with love and care, and it works.
Okay, in fact, the Don Bosco, since I'm an old student of Don Bosco, the Don Bosco's philosophy was not by blows but by kind words. I'm sure you're practicing that and with Yodhya as well. But many experts say that, sometimes it's the parents who go up to, and this is what a lot of people have told me after PTA meetings, Parent-Teacher Association meetings, that there are some parents who want their children to get centum in mathematics, who beat their children, because corporal punishment is not just inflicted by teachers, it's also inflicted by parents, also by neighbors sometimes or uncles, that if you don't get, I have heard of several students telling me, if we don't get centum in mathematics, our parents would beat us.
Okay, that's what, from the very young age, from standard 1, we have to tell them that it's not only the marks which matters, and success, we have to differentiate between success and excellence, and bring them up in that way. Because doing their best, excelling is different, and being successful, the children will have to make a differentiation between success and excellence. Then it works out for their betterment, and they will be able to accept lesser marks, and the parents also need counseling on this.
But will you give them admission if they get less marks?
For parents too.
Will you give them admission, ma'am, if they get less marks?
Definitely. I never send out any of my children who pass out from 10th.
All right, because there's a Gupta case at the Supreme Court where there are schools which have denied admission to their own students when they go to class 11 because they got less marks. But also, ma'am, would you say that I also know for a fact that a lot of parents go to the teachers and say, he's not studying at home, he's too playful, please beat him. And it's the same parents who then have to go and complain if there's corporal punishment.
No, parents do say that you try. Now we have tried everything we could. You try. There are methods still for if you sit with the child. So we have a system of teacher having a time with each kid in her class as the year starts. June, July, that's what she does. Each child, with each child, the teacher spends time, gets to know the child better, understands the child, and then deals with her problems, helps her deal with the problems.
All right.
So,
Anu, George, in the corporate sector, we have 360-degree assessment.
Yes.
Where the subordinates also, in fact, rate and assess the seniors. Do you believe the time has come, given the scenario of corporal punishment, for schools to have report cards for teachers also?
I would agree, that would be a great idea. But when you say 360, I also say that parents should be included in the cycle, because most of education comes from imitation and
observation. So they are doing homework anyway for the children.
Yes, I don't know about that, but parents tell their children to, tell that they are not in the house, lying. And immediately, if there is a fight on the road, immediately people resort to violence. So children quickly absorb that. So there should be a system where the child should also be able to report. It's very relevant in the United States. It might take a long time before we kind of start implementing. But
we are light years away from all that.
But if a child could talk about it, if the child has a forum where he can, within the school, where he can say that this is the problem that he's having in school or in the house, probably some help can be met.
All right. Thank you very much, Anu, for coming in and sharing your views. You know, you're the expert. I mean, you've done extensive work even in theatre and educating children. Thank you very much, Mrs. Annie Mohan, and may your tribe increase is what we'd say.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Before, one little question before I let you go. They say that when you inflict fear, it will only be counterproductive, that children don't really perform. You could leave a psychological scar on that child for life. Agree?
Definitely. Definitely.
All right, and I hope all the teachers who resort to corporal punishment are listening in, because there are schools in Chennai which still practice this. Not all of it comes out in the open. As I said it in my introduction, 90% of cases of corporal punishment go unreported. Perhaps it's a lesson this time around for teachers as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Mrs. Annie Mohan. Thank you again, Anu, George. Also to Sailendra Babu, Inspector General of Police, North Zone, and to Henry Triphane, Executive Director of People's Watch, for joining us earlier on the show. But there's a lot more news coming up in this special 1-hour wheel at 9 o'clock, coming up with Evelyn Matthew. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that remote. Stay tuned to NDTV Hindu.